They called it peace. 1,000 star systems, stitched together under the banner of the Galactic Accord. Flags waved, treaties signed, smug smiles exchanged across species that couldn't care less about humanity, except when they needed something. Earth had finally been invited in, late, small, but full of promise. And leading them, standing at that podium on the Citadel floor, was the only man who ever made the universe take humans seriously. Commander Grant Mercer. He wasn't just a leader. He was the warhound who clawed his way up from Earth's ashes after the resource collapse, turned the tide in the Martian rebellion, and made Earth's backwater planet status something to be feared instead of pitied. They laughed at Earth until Mercer taught them what human desperation could do. He didn't smile much, didn't waste words. But when he spoke, even the lizard diplomats from Scarith Prime listened. That's why when the plasma round tore through his chest, mid-speech, mid-hope, the galaxy didn't fall silent. It laughed. At first they said it was a lone radical, a rogue fringe alien from some anti-human faction. The Accord gave their condolences, held a ceremony full of fake tears and silver robes. But there was no justice, no trial, no consequences. Just a message. Earth was never going to be anything more than a pawn. Mercer was a threat, and threats get eliminated. I watched it happen. My name is Cade Mercer, Grant's son, soldier, shadow. The son the Accord didn't know existed. They thought my father was a cold tactician who never had family. They thought wrong. He raised me in silence, in shadows. I wasn't born to sit in council rooms. I was trained to disappear, to strike, to survive when empires wanted us gone. I wasn't supposed to be seen. But the moment they turned my father's chest into a crater, I made a choice. If the galaxy wanted war, then Earth would give them fire. I didn't go to the council. I didn't send messages or pleas. I went underground. The old Earth networks, the kind of channels Mercer used when he wanted ghosts to bleed. Soldiers that weren't in databases. Tech that didn't exist on paper. Mercenaries who owed him their lives. Humans who remembered how we were treated. Pushed around, stripped of rights. Spat on in council chambers. I lit the beacon. Code 73V. Vengeance Protocol. It took a week for them to find me. A dropship, black as night, landed in the ice fields of Europa. 6 stepped out, battle-scarred men and women, some more machine than flesh, all marked by Earth's forgotten wars. They didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. The warhound was dead, but his son still breathed. I stared them down, each one. We're not waiting for justice, I told them. We're bringing it. The first target wasn't military. It was symbolic. A floating museum orbiting Tarsus 9, where Mercer's assassination suit had been placed like some trophy. They called it a memorial. I called it a spit in the face. We didn't just destroy it. We broadcast it. Every species, every channel, watched as Earth's symbol was reclaimed, by force. I walked through that blood-slicked corridor, picked up the scorched uniform, and stared into the main holocam. "This is Earth," I said, voice low, fists clenched. "You murdered our leader, and now, we murder your peace." That was the beginning, not of war, of reckoning. We didn't expect mercy, didn't want it. What we wanted was fear. After the broadcast, the galaxy did what it always does when humanity shows teeth. It panicked. The Accord held emergency meetings. The holonet flooded with statements calling us terrorists, insurrectionists, traitors to peace. But they never once used the word murder for what they did to my father. And that told me everything. They'd signed off on it. Maybe not on paper, but in whispers, in closed doors, in shadow meetings between smug alien diplomats and corrupt Earth representatives looking to climb a little higher. The galaxy didn't make mistakes. It made calculated decisions, and killing Grant Mercer had been one of them. So we made one of our own. The next move had to hurt them where it mattered. Money. The trading hub at Zethar Station processed 23% of the Accord's interspecies commerce. Hundreds of ships docked there daily, protected by an orbital defense grid and a small army of Grell-class enforcers. No human had ever breached it. We didn't just breach it. We humiliated them. Dax, the demolitions expert, had spent 10 years running Black Ops in asteroid belts, dodging pirate traps and setting mines the size of a fist that could crack a hull like an egg. He got us in through the maintenance vents using an old contractor ID nobody ever bothered to deactivate. They never expected Earth tech to be smart enough for that. Once inside, we split up. Silence, precision, no civilians. We weren't monsters. We were message makers. Every target we hit was political, tactical, surgical. The control center was run by a Fenari named Tochnek, a smug, tentacle-faced bureaucrat who used to mock Earth's primitive status during council speeches. He was broadcasting when I walked in, saw me, froze. I didn't say a word, just dragged him to the window and let him watch the station's comm towers go up in flames. "You made us beg for scraps," I whispered, my voice low in his ear. "Now watch us take everything from you." He screamed when I shoved him out the pressure door. No bullets wasted. We escaped before their security could react, left behind our symbol, 3 red slashes through a blue star, old Earth insignia, banned now by the Accord for being militant. Good. That made it a flag, worth dying under. Back on the dropship, the team was quiet. No high fives, no celebration, just breathing, just rage. I looked around at them, each one carrying scars the galaxy never cared to ask about, exiled, forgotten, and now remembered only because we were a threat again. "This isn't revenge," I told them. "This is justice they didn't want to face. We make them bleed until they remember why they feared us in the first place." Gareth, the ex-UN heavy, lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "They called us savages," he said. "Guess it's time to show them what real savagery looks like." Word started spreading. They called us the Earthborn Reclaimers. They said we were a cult, a terrorist cell, even a galactic plague. Good. Let them build a myth around us. Let them have nightmares of human voices in the dark. Because for the first time in decades, Earth wasn't begging. It was hunting. They thought Earth was done after the first hit. Thought we'd crawl back to our dirt ball and get bombed into submission like before. But they didn't understand something critical. We weren't Earth's army. We were its anger. Every message we sent across the galaxy wasn't just a threat. It was a reminder. For centuries, humans were stepped on, called young, naive, unstable. They mocked our short lifespans and our need for fire. Now they were choking on the smoke. 3 weeks after Zethar Station, we struck again. This time, it was personal. They'd turned Earth's old lunar base into a diplomatic outpost, a neutral zone. Only it wasn't neutral. It was a surveillance center, watching Earth from above, intercepting our signals, choking our development. My father once called it a choke collar on a dying dog. So we broke the chain. Our entry came from the underbelly. Tunnels the aliens didn't even know were there. Dug during Earth's last Cold War, mapped by ghosts and paranoid presidents. Most people thought they'd collapsed long ago. They didn't. We knew because Mercer had walked them with me once when I was 10. He told me, "One day, the stars will forget who we are, and you'll remind them." I never forgot that. Inside the lunar base, the Accord's top Earth liaison, Ambassador Roll, was hosting a meeting with half the galactic species reps. No guards, no guns, just politics. We stormed the chamber in silence. No shouting, no theatrics, just rifles and unflinching stares. One of the diplomats tried to reach for a panic beacon. I shot him through the shoulder and kept walking. Roll stood up, his face pale, slick with fear. "You're destabilizing centuries of peace," he said. I laughed in his face. "Peace ended the moment you killed the one man who kept Earth from starting a war. We're not destabilizing anything. We're finishing what you started." "You won't get away with this," he hissed. I leaned in. "We already have." "We didn't kill anyone else. That wasn't the point. We let every alien diplomat walk out that day, under armed escort, through Earth's tunnels. But we made sure they walked under our banner, made sure they saw what we'd built underground, labs, weapons, soldiers. And when they reached the surface, they didn't walk into the Accord's extraction shuttle. They walked into Earth territory, human territory, sovereign, guarded, waiting. We made it clear. Earth wasn't just surviving. It was rising. After that, the galaxy started whispering. Systems began locking their ports. Trade convoys rerouted. Military fleets doubled their patrols. They were scared. And fear. Fear was leverage, but it also painted a target on our backs. One night, in the frozen ruins of an abandoned Martian colony, they came for us. Not Accord forces. Something worse. Hunters. Black-armored assassins from a private alien kill squad called the Vexari. Never officially recognized, but everyone in the underworld knew the truth. If the Accord wanted someone erased without fingerprints, they called the Vexari. And they didn't miss. We lost 2 that night. Nadia, our tech genius, quiet, twitchy, always listening. And Rig, the old engineer who built our power cells from scrap. They didn't die in combat. They were dragged out while they slept. Their bodies left posed at the entrance, eyes open, throats slit with surgical precision. It was a message. "We got yours. Now we want you." I buried them myself. No speeches, just dirt, blood, and a promise to never sleep again until I made the Vexari wish they'd never been born. "You kill one of ours," I said into the cold wind, "and we burn 10 of yours." We tracked their signal to a derelict mining station on the edge of the void belt. No guards, just traps and shadows. The kind of place you went into only if you planned on never coming out. We went anyway, because Earth doesn't back down. Not anymore. We touched down on the edge of that cursed rock like ghosts, silent, deliberate, and already half dead inside. The mining station had been abandoned for nearly a decade, long enough for most governments to pretend it didn't exist, but not long enough for its walls to forget the screams they once held. The void belt wasn't just a dead zone. It was a dumping ground for all the galaxy's dirty secrets, and the Vexari loved secrets. The station stank of rust and rotted metal, but underneath that, there was something worse. Fear. It lingered in the silence, in the flickering lights, in the way every hallway seemed to narrow around us like it wanted us to vanish too. Dax swept for traps. Gareth took point with the heavy repeater. I brought up the rear, rifle low, heart pounding in that slow, bitter rhythm I'd come to know since my father died. This wasn't just another hit. This was personal justice, the kind no court would ever give us. We found the first body hanging from a ceiling pipe, an alien smuggler we'd worked with once on Caltris 8. His face was peeled, his hands gone. Message clear. We know your allies. We know your methods. We will unmake you. There was a camera pointed at him, still blinking red. They were watching. You think they're still here? Gareth muttered, eye scanning the corners. They never left, I said. We moved deeper, floor by floor, stairwell by stairwell, and then we heard it. Click. The sound of a pressure plate being triggered. Dax didn't even flinch. He threw his bag down and dropped to the floor, hands working fast to disarm it. But there was no bomb. It was a signal. That's when the lights cut out. In the darkness, something moved. Fast. Silent. Inhuman. A blur tackled Gareth into the wall, metal screeching, gunfire bursting in blind arcs. We opened fire, the muzzle flashes lighting glimpses of something wrong. Sleek armor, claws, eyes that glowed with synthetic hate. Vexari. I lunged forward, blade drawn, slashing into one as it lunged. Sparks flew, blood followed, black and steaming. It didn't scream, just fell like a machine, powering down. "Fall back to the generator room," I barked, dragging Gareth, who was bleeding from a gash across his ribs. Dax covered our retreat, lobbing a thermal charge behind us to seal the hall. We made it to the core, and that's where he was waiting, the Vexari commander. He didn't wear a mask, didn't need to. His face was smooth, surgical, his expression dead behind two artificial blue lenses. A translator box buzzed at his throat as he spoke. "You broke the law of the stars, Cade Mercer," he said, voice like a cold wind. "You declared vengeance on peace. Now we erase your name." I lowered my rifle, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted him to see my eyes. "You murdered my father for power, for politics, and now you think erasing me will bury what you did?" He tilted his head. "You are not important." I smiled. "You're right, but I'm the last mistake you'll ever make." I hit the detonator. The outer ring of the station exploded first, our work planted when we landed. Controlled charges set on key supports. The mining station began collapsing in on itself like a dying lung. Alarms wailed, metal screamed. The Vexari lunged, but I was faster. We fought in a blur of fists, knives, and fury. Blood spilled, his and mine. The others held the doorway, keeping the rest of the squad at bay. And when I finally drove my blade through the commander's chest, twisting it hard, I leaned in close. "That's for Nadia," I whispered. "And Rig. And my father." The station was coming down. We escaped with minutes to spare, diving into the drop shuttle as fire roared behind us. The mining station vanished in a blooming hellstorm, torn from the void and swallowed by its own sins. But this wasn't a victory. Not yet. Because as we flew back toward the dark edge of the solar system, the Accord issued its first public order. Cade Mercer, kill on sight. They finally said my name, and that was their biggest mistake yet. They could have ignored me, could have kept calling us ghosts, radicals, whispers in the dark. But they didn't. They put my name on a screen, every screen, broadcast it across the galactic net, every language, every system, my face, my history, my alleged crimes, treason, terrorism, war crimes. They painted me like a madman, a rogue son of a fallen tyrant, a threat to unity. But they made one fatal error. They told the truth about who I was. And on Earth, in the slums, in the mines, in the sectors still covered in radiation dust and blood-stained streets, people remembered Mercer. They remembered what it felt like to have someone in the stars who fought for them, not for votes or alliances. A man who looked at the galaxy and didn't ask for a seat. He demanded respect. Now, his son was at war, and Earth woke up. It started in the southern scrap zones, where the Accord's peace officers ran daily raids and silenced protests with plasma batons. A teenage boy, barely 16, spray-painted the Earthborn Reclaimer's insignia across a patrol ship and set it ablaze. The footage went viral in hours. Then came the riots in Neo-Tokyo Sector 4, then the shipyard strikes on Ceres, then the black market blockade in Mars' underbelly. I hadn't asked for any of it, but I didn't stop it either, because revolution doesn't come with a manual. We touched down on Earth for the first time in months, deep in what was once called Siberia, now just frozen metal graveyards and forgotten factories. My father had a bunker there, one only I knew about. We needed supplies, rest, and one last plan, because this war wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about sending a final message the Accord couldn't ignore. They controlled the skies, the trade routes, the media, but they didn't control Earth's pulse, and I was going to make sure they felt it, up close. Dax ran diagnostics on the ship, while Gareth stitched himself up on a crate. I was staring at the old hollow table my father used to map his campaigns. It still glowed faint blue when I placed my hand on it. The target was clear. The orbital accord assembly, high above the planet in geosynchronous orbit. A fortress of politics, where the same bastards who approved my father's assassination now sipped drinks and debated how much more they could squeeze from Earth before it broke again. Taking it wasn't just impossible, it was suicidal, which made it perfect. "I need to know," Gareth said behind me, his voice low, rough. "You planning on dying up there, or are you actually trying to win this thing?" I turned, stared him down. "If I die," I said, "they'll call me a terrorist forever. But if I live, if I sit in that chair and stare them in the eye with blood on my hands and my father's name in my mouth, then they'll remember, every one of them, that Earth isn't a colony, it's a reckoning." He grinned. "Then let's crash their goddamn party." We mobilized every sleeper cell left on the planet. Rebels, ex-soldiers, hackers, old Earth loyalists who had been quiet for decades. They came in ones and twos, wearing the red star slashes on their chest, some armored, some barely clothed for war, but all burning. We only needed one chance, one opening, and the Accord gave it to us. A supply vessel, unsupervised, en route to the assembly. We hijacked it mid-orbit, swapped the crew, and sent a falsified clearance code Dax whipped up using a stolen ambassador's encryption. As we neared the outer shield gate, I sat at the helm, staring through the glass as the giant ring of the assembly loomed above, silver and gold, shimmering with arrogance. "You sure this is the way?" Dax asked, fingers shaking on the thruster switch. I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure. I wasn't even stable, but I was done being quiet. I'd already buried too many names, too many promises, so I gripped the controls. And as we punched through the last layer of Accord security, I smiled. "They killed Earth's leader," I muttered. "Now Earth's sons are here to bury theirs." We breached the outer hangar of the orbital Accord assembly in less than 10 seconds. The guards inside never expected an Earth freighter to carry anything but cargo and desperation. What they got instead was vengeance in steel and blood. Gareth led the charge, armor welded from scavenged Martian riot gear, repeater slung across his chest like a holy relic. Dax followed, his eyes wired into the ship's override codes, disabling internal defenses before alarms could fully scream. I moved behind them, rifle tight to my shoulder, vision tunneled. Not rage, not adrenaline. Something colder. Resolve. We didn't come for hostages. We didn't come to talk. We came to remind them that Earth bleeds, but it also bites back. The halls of the assembly were pristine. Polished glass, golden walls, floating drones. The kind of place built for cowards who'd never tasted war, who thought peace was something negotiated with smiles instead of paid for with corpses. We turned that place into a battleground. By the time we reached the main chamber, the Accord Council had already initiated lockdown. High above, a dome of hardened crystal sealed their position from the rest of the station. An arrogant move. They thought the shield would save them. It wouldn't. Dax wired into the control node near the central spine. Sparks flew. Warnings blared in 12 languages, but his hands never shook. "I can crack it," he said, sweat pouring down his face. "But they'll see us coming. Every damn rep inside will have 10 armed guards pointed at your face." "Good," I said. "Let them look." I turned to Gareth. "How many charges we got left?" 5 satchel bombs. Enough to bring this whole wing down. Save 3. We're not here to destroy. We're here to make them listen." He nodded, then pulled his blade and kissed it once, a ritual I never asked about. When the shield dropped, the chamber beyond fell silent. 12 council members, all species, all staring. The same cold-blooded elites who had shaken my father's hand before approving his execution. The Scarethi diplomat with silver skin, The Fenari noble who once called Earth's culture barbaric in every measurable way. The human traitor, Counselor Wright, who wore the Accord crest like a second skin and smiled like Earth's pain was just policy. I walked straight in, weapon lowered, no mask. Let them see me. Cade Mercer, the Skarithi hissed, you've brought war to the heart of peace. No, I said. You did. The day you put a plasma round through my father's chest and called it diplomacy. Counselor Wright stood, his voice calm like a teacher explaining to a slow child. Commander Mercer was becoming unstable. His actions threatened universal unity. I stepped forward, pulse steady. You mean he stopped bowing? Wright frowned. You can't intimidate us with theatrics. I tossed a data drive onto the central holotable. This isn't a threat. It's truth. I looked them all dead in the eye. That drive contains everything. The planning meetings, the hidden transcripts, the votes. You didn't just sanction his death. You negotiated it like a goddamn trade agreement, gasps. One of the counselors stood up so fast, their translator earpiece popped off. The Fenari snarled. Where did you get this? From your own intelligence network, Dax said from behind me, grinning like a man who just robbed a god. Turns out Earth tech's a little more advanced than you thought. I stepped up onto the dais, into the center of the chamber. I don't want your apologies. I don't want your titles. I want you to know that Earth's silence is over. From now on, every deal you make without us, every law you pass that buries us, every insult you hurl, you will bleed for it. You think you're heroes, Wright spat. You're insurgents, war criminals. No, I said. We're warnings. And then we left. Just like that. No massacre, no bloodbath. We walked out the front gate, into the ship, and into history. Because when that data leaked, the galaxy changed. Every system that ever feared Earth now questioned the Accord. Alliances cracked. Protests erupted. Stations burned. Half the council members resigned within days. The others? They started hiring bodyguards. Because Earth's vengeance wasn't just a rebellion anymore. It was a movement. They thought walking out of that chamber meant it was over. That Earth had fired its last shot. That we'd disappear back into the shadows, content with the noise we made. But they didn't understand something fundamental. Noise isn't war, and we weren't done. Because truth shakes empires, but fear collapses them. 3 days after we leaked the data, the Accord deployed what they called stabilization fleets to Earth-adjacent systems. They said it was for peacekeeping. Everyone knew it was retaliation dressed up in diplomacy. They wanted to show us who still controlled the skies. Only problem was, we were already in them. Over the last year, we'd built more than just a rebellion. We'd seeded Earth's last orbital defense network, black site platforms, hijacked alien satellites, and hidden cannon arrays that had been decommissioned when Earth joined the Accord. My father kept the access codes, and now I had them. When the first fleet warped into Earth space, they came with banners, not guns, protocol, formality, the kind of pride that only empires could afford. They never saw the first barrage coming. 3 frigates gone in under 30 seconds. No warnings, no hails, just silence and sudden fire. I stood in the old command station buried beneath what used to be Geneva, now known only as Free Zone 1, our capital, carved into the bones of Earth's ruins. I watched through satellite feed as the Accord's fleet scattered in confusion, ships spiraling, shields flaring, panicked comms buzzing across every channel. Gareth was leaning against the wall beside me, chewing a stim stick. That enough of a message? I nodded. Not yet. We didn't hit the capital ship. That was deliberate. Let them limp back, wounded and humiliated, carrying the image of Earth's firepower, not theoretical, not simulated, real, tangible, untamed. Later that night, in a bunker full of noise and smoke and blood-streaked armor, I recorded the message. The final one. I didn't script it, didn't rehearse it, just looked into the lens and spoke like my father would have. This is Cade Mercer, son of the man you murdered, leader of the Earthborn Reclaimers. You called us radicals, terrorists, liars, but today you felt us. Today you saw what Earth is without chains. And this is only the beginning. I leaned forward, jaw tight. You don't get to kill our leaders and call it justice. You don't get to silence our voices and call it peace. You don't get to profit from our blood and call it unity. From this day forward, every time you disrespect Earth, every time you underestimate what humans are capable of, we will answer. Pause. With fire. The video played on every major system within hours. And the galaxy reacted. Not with unity, not with condemnation, with fracture. Minor systems pulled out of the accord. Trade routes refused to recognize their authority. Old Earth colonies, ones we thought were lost to time, sent encrypted messages pledging support. Some even offered fleets. But support didn't mean safety. Because that night, we lost Dax. They found us. The Vixari weren't gone after all, and they weren't working alone anymore. They hit Free Zone 1 during a false flag trade drop. 2 cloaked drop pods, 4 operatives. They didn't aim for the command center. They didn't care about killing leaders. They aimed for our heart. Dax was in the server core, updating routing protocols. One minute he was cursing the Accord's encryption patterns. The next, his voice cut off mid-word. We found him minutes later, throat slit, hands broken, and his comms log wiped. A warning. Again. They didn't want to win a war. They wanted to unravel us. So I stood over Dax's body that night, hands clenched, vision blurred. And I made a vow I didn't say aloud, that no matter what it cost, I would burn every last name tied to the Accord, every last seat in that chamber, every last enforcer, every last coward who thought Earth's rage could be managed. Because I wasn't just my father's son anymore. I was his fire, and the galaxy was running out of places to hide from it. The storm didn't come from above. It rose from below. Every planet, every moon, every outpost where humans had been treated like cargo, where we were taxed without say, patrolled without mercy, or stripped of dignity, they erupted. This wasn't just war anymore. This was reckoning. After Dax died, I stopped sleeping, stopped smiling. I stopped being Cade Mercer, the son, the fighter, the symbol. I became something colder, a consequence. We gathered our last fleet, 12 ships, 3 stolen from the Accord, 2 built from scavenged parts on Titan, the rest held together by faith, duct tape, and hatred. No one believed we could take the assembly again. Not now. Not after they reinforced it, tripled their guard, cloaked it in next-gen shielding tech. Didn't matter. Because this time, we weren't going to walk out. This time, we were going to bury it. The plan was madness. Even I knew that. A full frontal assault on the most fortified structure in orbit. No backup. No escape route. But that's how you make them scared. That's how you etch your story into the bones of history. We launched from Free Zone 1 at 0 hour. No lights, no flags, no anthem. Just silence and fury. They spotted us halfway through the exobelt, but we were already past their outer nets. By the time their capital cruisers repositioned, we were inside their throat. Firing, breaking, bleeding. The reclaimer ships went down one by one, but not before taking their share of death with them. Gareth's ship was hit on approach. He stayed behind, manually detonating its core reactor as 3 Accord interceptors swarmed him. He died, cursing into the comms. Tell those bastards Earth doesn't forget. I landed alone, ripped through the main hull with a breacher pod, and came out swinging, blade rifle fists. It wasn't battle anymore. It was cleansing. The halls were chaos, flashing lights, sirens, screams. The Accord guards fell back room by room. I kept pushing. Not because I had a plan, because I had nothing else left to lose. When I reached the council chamber, it was already in lockdown. Emergency walls sealed tight. Every council member hiding behind their pretty metal curtain, thinking their power meant safety. I opened a comm channel. Didn't expect them to answer. But one voice did. "Right. You think you've won, Cade," he said, breathing heavy, shaking. "You'll go down in history as a butcher, a madman. You brought chaos, not freedom." I stared at the wall like I could see him through it. Better a butcher than a coward who signs death warrants with a smile. "We tried to help Earth. You refused to play by the rules." "There were never rules," I snapped. "Just chains." He started to say something else. I cut the channel. Planted the last charge. Set the timer for 5 minutes. I didn't leave. I sat on the floor, blood coating my arms, back against the steel wall of their precious sanctum. Listening to the panicked footsteps inside, the muffled cries, the realization that this time, there would be no way out. This wasn't about survival anymore. It was about making it end. I closed my eyes, saw my father's face, stern, tired, proud. I saw Dax's smirk, Gareth's scowl, Nadia's quiet nod. I whispered their names like prayers. And then the world turned to white. They say the explosion cracked the assembly into 3 pieces. They say Wright's body was found half-melted, still clutching the Accord seal. They say Earth was silent for a day, and then it roared louder than ever before. Because that's the thing about fire. Once it starts, it spreads. And in every colony, every station, every dust-choked Earth sector, the people didn't mourn. They rose. Not for me, not even for Mercer, but for the idea that a man, a human, could stare into the cold face of the galaxy and say, "Not today," and burn everything that said otherwise.